A Nigerian deposit bank has published names and account numbers of some customers alleged to have violated the forex policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The United Bank for Africa listed the names and account numbers in a publication on its website titled CBN FX Defaulters. The decision to publish the customers' details is in line with the directive by the Apex Bank. The CBN directed deposit money banks to set up telepoints to meet legitimate forex demands. This was after the Apex Bank halted the sale of forex to bureau de change operators. The UBA asked customers to submit only genuine documents to obtain forex for personal and business travel, as well as payment for overseas education and other eligible transactions. Meanwhile, foreign exchange inflow into the country fell by 59.8% in April. Well, that's according to the figures obtained from the Central Bank monthly report on foreign exchange flows through the economy. A part of the report shows the aggregate foreign exchange inflow into the economy declined sharply, reflecting a tepid global economy recovery, which undermined foreign trade and capital flows across countries despite the COVID-19 vaccination drive. A foreign exchange inflow through the economy dropped to $4.97 billion in April of 2021. The Central Bank of Nigeria also said that aggregate foreign exchange outflow through the economy fell by 13.7% in April of this year. And former Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, says the country must have a knowledge-based economy to overcome poverty. Sanusi says rather than prioritizing infrastructure, Nigeria must enhance the intellectual capacity of its people. The former central bank governor laments that Nigerians have not been putting technology to use and blames this on why the country's gross domestic product is not on the rise. Let's bring in our Rise news analyst Amadi, and he joins me now to discuss these issues. I want to start from the bottom. Dr. Amadi, the fact that he's saying that we're not prioritizing technology and that's why the GDP is not growing the way it's supposed to, agree with him?
Well, largely, I mean, clearly, first he talked about knowledge economy, which is a function of both the human capital and technology diffusion. So essentially, you need to, one of the arguments that look with greater technology diffusion first, acquisition of skills and technique, knowledge, and it is diffusion. And also it goes into industrialization, productivity. You look at the global world today, what we call production segmentation. Many products are now can be broken into different parts and they can produce across the country. So if Nigeria enhances its technical capability, not just in terms of knowledge, but also in terms of technology, which is not just hardware, software as well, which also is about diffusion. That means this knowledge diffuses to industry. This knowledge becomes not just that it's knowledge that is kind of localized around some elites, but the knowledge that is diffused as part of industrial production. So that kind of knowledge is what creates a knowledge economy. It means you are commercializing knowledge, not just knowledge in terms of theories and norms, but also knowledge in terms of artifacts, in terms of production, inventions, technology, fabrications. So the argument convention is that economy that is now knowledge-based probably would have gone from structural transformation, from agriculture, from low-tech manufacturing to high-tech, then it gets to knowledge-based, in which case people are now retailing knowledge, selling knowledge, and using knowledge to create higher level production in terms of goods and services. So a good example would be Korea. Korea moved gradually.
The Asian continent in general, we've seen that transformation.
Their per capita increases, the GDP increases relative to what they could have gotten if they were a primary producer, like Saudi Arabia, he gave example, Finland, Taiwan, they are using more of technology. But the question is, can we get to knowledge economy if we continue to run a traditional society, the sense that religion, cultural restrictions, some level of lack of what we can call individualism. You need to have a system that allows for innovation, not just in terms of acquiring technology, but also in terms of the norm. So this is a society that is really trapped in neo-feudalism, meaning that people are held back by cultural norms which constrain them from being innovative, creating frontiers. So the Emir is right, but again, the consequence of moving towards a knowledge economy will be that probably we won't have as many Emirs as we have. Okay, it means that we're going to trash some of our cultural, heritage. Like one of the New York Times economists says, between the Lexus and olive tree. So it's easy to talk about knowledge economy, but getting there is really difficult. It requires, for example, we're talking about constitutional argument around localizing, giving people the right states to collect VAT, for example, production. If we're not able to decentralize and create, losing the public sector control of production, losing the central government control of production, it will be difficult to become a knowledge-based economy, because knowledge-based economy will require some degree of shifting the relationship between state and citizens and federal and state. Several structural changes have to come in. But I agree generally,
change,
exactly,
really.
that could help us improve production, productivity, income for households, diffuse knowledge, people create things, and then maybe you get people more out of poverty.
Right, getting people out of poverty is a promise that this administration is actually giving to us. And of course, we do know that there's a lot of investment on infrastructure, and even we're seeing a lot of borrowing, and the excuses we're actually putting them into certain infrastructure. But let's not dwell too much on that right now. Let's talk about, the CBN directive to banks in terms of publishing the names and even details of those who default in terms of Forex. And the fact that we've seen one bank actually take this up. But as an associate professor of law, there's that question about the rights of a customer being infringed here. Do you think there's a case here?
Well, there's no much right to infringement. There's no right to misuse Forex. Now, don't forget that this is not about the people who owe money. These are mostly people who apply for Forex, didn't use them according to the UBA for example, education, and they never returned. So within the regulatory rules, the bank will be on safe ground to publish those names if the regulator, the central bank, has given directives. So there will be no breach of customer confidentiality in this case, or customer rights to service. But essentially, the industry says, the regulator says, look, if people have contravened the rules, the first question is, those people published, are they persons who have contravened the terms of Forex allocation? If, for example, you get Forex at a preferential term because you're going to sustain their kid to school. So you access a differential kind of Forex regime that's for schooling. And the child didn't go to school and he didn't return back the Forex. Then you cannot plead disclosure that it shouldn't be disclosed, because basically you have contravened. So the primary question from a law point of view will be, are these contraventions of guidelines are clear? If they are, then the customers themselves cannot, to talk about maybe disclosures about their personality or some kind of bringing them to ignominy. Again, there's so much racketing and so much, gaming of the system, and then maybe the CBN struggling with dealing with this Forex crisis. Some people have argued that they are living the rating of chasing shadow, but primarily, if they can't fix the hard problem, maybe they can fix the small one, which is some level of prudence. So
you believe that this directive of the CBN will be far-reaching in terms of, assuaging the Forex issue that we have noticed? Yeah,
it will eliminate some of those gaming, but essentially, some economists will argue that, look, you need a lot more restructuring of the Forex market and the policies to get us. And again, we are not producing. Again, we are basically finding a way to defend the Naira, but not necessarily create an economic condition that will allow it to,
Right, and as we get ready to wrap up this conversation, let's bring back, the warning that Nigeria got from IATA, talking about the fact that the industry is actually suffering a whole lot due to this Forex issue as well. The fact that people go to the banks, use the tickets that they've booked online, get this Forex and never travel, eventually cancelling at the last minute. How can the travel agency really, and the agents really come together to assuage this? Because there's a huge warning, because IATA says it's an economic sabotage.
Absolutely. And again, if you look at it, there's several things. If people talk about VAT, some of the things we allow people not to pay for, subsidize them, or some kind of preferential arrangement for them, we have to rethink them again. Again, always remember that there's always gaming. People are ready to take opportunities, but the question is, do we close the gap well? Our regulatory framework strong, enforcement, monitoring, and oftentimes penalties. You might not be able to find all those who violate this term. But if you have punitive penalties, then people will self-regulate, because the cost of getting involved in this kind of racketing becomes expensive. But we have a system actually that's even insiders gaming. So it's easier for people to kind of game the system, because the rules are not strong. And if they are strong, the capacity to monitor and enforce is very weak. So primarily, it's an economic sabotage. And I think both the EFCC and other agencies and the central bank and the aviation regulator themselves may need to adopt new policies. Don't forget that our aviation sector, COVID almost collapsed globally, and we suffered a lot. And now that you're trying to get out of that crisis.
Over $17 billion.
Lost.
I remember the Minister of Aviation.
Exactly. And we're not
really
even capable now
it.
to subsidize and help to shore up the asset base or the finances of the aviation airline industries. So essentially, we should not allow any kind of private sector gaming of the system. That will be double whammy.
For your in-depth analysis tonight, I say thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi, for joining me tonight.